Albert Einstein, the genius who changed the world. Hello everyone. Welcome. Today, we'll explore an amazing story that will inspire you and boost your English skills. We're diving into the life of Albert Einstein, a man who transformed our world with his brilliant ideas and courage. As you listen, focus on the new words and phrases I'll share. This isn't just about learning English. It's about how never giving up and staying curious can lead to greatness. So grab a notebook, listen carefully, and let's start this journey to improve your listening, grow your vocabulary, and find motivation in the life of a true genius. Chapter 1. A Curious Child. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in a small German town called Ulm. His parents, Hermann and Pauline, were ordinary people. Hermann sold electrical equipment, and Pauline took care of their home. She loved music and learning. When Albert was born, he seemed like a normal baby, except for one thing. His head was quite big. His family even joked about it, wondering if he'd grow up like other kids. Little did they know, this boy would change the world. Albert was a very quiet child. He didn't speak his first words until he was almost 3 years old. This worried his parents. Some people thought something was wrong with him. His family called him the quiet one because he rarely spoke, even when other children talked and played around him. But Albert wasn't quiet because he was slow. He was quiet because he was always thinking. He would sit for hours, watching the world around him, trying to understand how everything worked. When Albert was 5 years old, his father gave him a small gift that changed his life forever, a simple compass. At first, Albert didn't understand it. How could the needle always point north, no matter how he turned it? He became fascinated by this tiny object. He stared at it for hours, trying to figure out the invisible force guiding the needle. This was the first time Albert realized there were hidden forces in the world, and he wanted to discover them all. He later said, "That experience left a deep mark on me." Chapter 2. School Struggles. When Albert started school, things didn't go well. He didn't like how his teachers taught. Back then, schools were very strict. Students had to memorize lots of facts. But Albert wasn't interested in memorizing. He wanted to ask questions and find answers. His teachers often got angry with him. One teacher even told him, "You're a disgrace. You'll never succeed in life." These words hurt, but Albert didn't let them stop him. Albert found some subjects hard, especially languages. But there was one subject he loved more than anything: mathematics. He called it the language of the universe and enjoyed solving math problems like puzzles. Despite his school struggles, Albert's family believed in him. His mother, Pauline, noticed his love for music and encouraged him to learn the violin. At first, Albert hated practicing, but over time, music became a way for him to relax and think clearly. His uncle Jacob also played a big role in shaping his mind. Jacob loved math and taught Albert in a fun way. He once told him, "Math is like a treasure hunt. Every problem is a clue leading you to the answer." This playful approach made Albert fall in love with numbers. Albert wasn't like other children. While others played games, he spent hours reading books and imagining how the world worked. He loved stories about famous scientists and dreamed of making his own discoveries one day. Once, walking home from school, he asked himself, what would it be like to ride a beam of light? This question stayed with him for years. It was the start of his lifelong journey to understand light, space, and time. Chapter 3: Finding His Own Path. When Albert was 15, life got tough. His father's business failed, and the family moved to Italy. Albert stayed in Germany to finish school, but he hated being away from his family. He felt lonely and unhappy. Finally, Albert decided to leave school without finishing. He couldn't stand the strict rules and harsh teachers anymore. Instead, he started studying on his own. He read books on science, philosophy, and math, teaching himself everything he wanted to know. This was a risky choice. Many people thought he had ruined his future by quitting school, but Albert didn't care. He believed learning was more important than following rules. At 16, Albert wrote his first science paper. It wasn't perfect, but it showed his amazing potential. He also applied to a famous school in Switzerland called the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School, but he failed the entrance exam. He struggled with non-science subjects like French and history. Instead of giving up, Albert tried again. He worked harder than ever, improving his weak areas and refusing to let failure define him. Albert Einstein's early life was full of struggles and doubts. People didn't understand him. He faced rejection and failure, but he never gave up. His curiosity, determination, and love for learning kept him going. Chapter 4: The Patent Office Years. Albert was determined to succeed. After leaving Germany, he moved to Switzerland, known for its modern schools. Switzerland was different. Schools were less strict, and students were encouraged to think freely. This was exactly what Albert needed. At 17, Albert tried again to get into the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich. This time he passed, but his troubles weren't over. Even though he studied at one of Europe's best schools, Albert's independent thinking made it hard to fit in. He loved math and physics, but didn't care about other subjects. His professors didn't understand his way of thinking. Some even disliked him because he didn't follow their methods. One professor said, "You're smart, Einstein, but you lack discipline." Albert wasn't the best student. He often skipped lectures and studied alone. While his classmates followed the lessons, Albert explored deeper questions. What is light? How does time work? Why does gravity exist? These weren't ordinary questions. During this time, Albert met a young woman named Mileva Merrick. She was the only female physics student in his class. Mileva was brilliant, and she shared Albert's passion for science. They became close, spending hours discussing scientific ideas. Mileva wasn't just Albert's classmate. She became his closest friend. They inspired each other and dreamed of making discoveries together. Albert once wrote to her, "Together, we will conquer the world of science." But their relationship wasn't easy. Mileva faced criticism for being a woman in science, and Albert struggled with money problems. Despite the challenges, they supported each other and stayed focused on their dreams. In 1900, at age 21, Albert graduated with a physics degree. He was excited to start his career as a scientist. But life had other plans. Albert couldn't find a job. He applied to universities hoping to become a professor or researcher, but he was rejected every time. His professors didn't recommend him because they thought he was unmotivated. This was a painful time for Albert. Imagine working hard for years only to hear no again and again. But Albert didn't give up. He took any job he could find to support himself. Finally, in 1902, Albert found work as a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. His job was to review new inventions and decide if they were original. It wasn't a fancy job, and it had nothing to do with physics. At first, Albert was disappointed. He wanted to be a scientist, not a clerk. But instead of complaining, he made the best of it. The job gave him free time, and he used it to think about his scientific ideas. Albert called the patent office his thinking lab. While reviewing patents, he secretly wrote down his thoughts about light, time, and space. He was determined to follow his dream, even if it meant working late into the night after his day job. In 1903, Albert married Maliva. They had a simple wedding and soon had their first child, a son named Hans Albert. Life wasn't easy. Albert's clerk's salary wasn't enough to support his family. They lived in a small apartment and struggled to pay bills. Albert's friends often told him to give up on science and focus on his job, but Albert refused. He said, "I'd rather struggle for my passion than live comfortably without purpose." Despite the hardships, Albert kept working on his theories. Chapter 5: The Miracle Year. In 1905, at age 26, Albert published a series of papers that changed the world forever. Scientists call this Einstein's miracle year. Here's what he discovered. How light works. He explained that light behaves like tiny particles, called photons. This later won him the Nobel Prize in Physics. Proof of atoms. He showed that atoms really exist. This was a huge discovery at the time. Special theory of relativity. This was his most famous work. He introduced the idea that time and space are not fixed. They depend on how you move. From this came the world-famous equation, E equals mc squared. This showed that energy and matter can change into each other. These papers shocked the scientific world. Albert Einstein, a humble clerk with no university job, had just revolutionized physics. After 1905, Albert's life began to change. Scientists around the world noticed his work. He was offered teaching jobs and became a professor at several universities. Finally, his hard work paid off. But Albert didn't let success go to his head. He kept asking big questions and pushing the limits of science. He believed knowledge is endless and that curiosity is the key to understanding the universe. Albert's journey, from a struggling clerk to a world-famous scientist, shows the power of never giving up. He faced rejection, poverty, and doubt, but he never lost his passion for science. His story teaches us. Failure isn't the end, it's a step toward success. Believing in yourself is more important than pleasing others. Big dreams require big sacrifices. Chapter 6: Fame and Challenges. By 1909, Albert's discoveries were famous across Europe. He became a professor at the University of Zurich and later moved to teach in Prague. People now saw him as a genius, someone who could solve the universe's mysteries. But Albert stayed humble. He once said, "I'm no genius. I'm just curious. I stay with questions longer than others." But fame brought problems. Albert didn't care about fancy clothes or money. He lived simply, wearing old clothes and focusing only on his work. While the world celebrated him, Albert knew his journey wasn't over. In 1914, Albert moved to Berlin, Germany, for a top job at the Prussian Academy of Sciences. This was a big step. Now he had the resources and freedom to focus only on research. Around this time, the world changed dramatically. World War II started, affecting millions of lives. While many scientists supported the war, Albert spoke against it. He believed in peace and used his fame to promote understanding. During this time, Albert's marriage to Mileva fell apart. The pressures of fame, plus their past money struggles, created distance between them. In 1919, they divorced, though Albert made sure Mileva and their sons were financially supported. That same year, something incredible happened. British scientists tested Albert's general theory of relativity, which he'd worked on since 1915. The results proved he was right. Gravity can bend light. This was a revolutionary discovery that changed how we see the universe. News spread like wildfire. Albert Einstein became a global superstar overnight. Newspapers around the world shouted, "Einstein's theory proven true." In the 1920s, Albert traveled the world, giving lectures and meeting other scientists. He visited the United States, Japan, and many countries, sharing his ideas and inspiring new thinkers. Albert used his fame to fight for peace. He said, "Peace can't be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding." He also supported the rights of minorities and refugees, speaking for those who had no voice. But as his fame grew, so did criticism. Some called him too idealistic. Others tried to prove his theories wrong. Albert faced this calmly, saying, "Great spirits have always faced strong opposition from ordinary minds." Chapter 7. Later Years and Legacy. Albert became an American citizen in 1940 and spent the rest of his life in the U.S. During World War II, Albert was asked to support the creation of an atomic bomb. Although he didn't directly work on it, his famous equation E=mc² made nuclear energy possible. Albert was deeply troubled when he learned about the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Albert's curiosity never faded. He kept asking big questions about the universe, from black holes to time travel. He believed there was always more to learn. In his later years, he tried to create one single theory explaining all the forces of nature, a challenge scientists still work on today. Even when his health got worse, he kept working until his last breath. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at age 76. His last words, spoken in German, were never recorded because the nurse with him didn't understand the language. Albert Einstein's contributions to science, peace, and humanity are unmatched. His story reminds us that struggles shape greatness. Albert faced rejection, ridicule, and war, but never gave up on his dreams. Curiosity drives progress. He taught us to question everything and seek answers, no matter how hard. Humility is powerful. Despite his fame, Albert stayed simple, showing true greatness lies in being yourself. Today, his name means genius, but his story is about more than intelligence. It's about perseverance, courage, and believing one person can change the world. Albert's life proves that greatness isn't about being perfect. It's about being passionate, persistent, and brave enough to challenge the impossible. His words still inspire us today. Try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value. If you enjoyed this story and found it helpful for your English learning, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps others find our channel too. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time on English Growth Way.